What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? This is Joey Womack, founder, CEO of Goodie Nation, coming to you for another episode of Prequel, Origin Stories and Inflection Points, a special edition with the Google for Startups Black Founders Fund 3 recipients. You're in for an absolute treat today as you get to learn how these awesome founders, how these dope founders got to be where they are today, right? The reason why at Goodie Nation we believe origin stories are important is because relationships matter. And we're focused on closing what we call the relationship gap at Goodie Nation. Now, this is the lack of connection between founders and influential people, particularly in business and in tech. When this gap is large, it means that the founders don't have access to capital, but it also means they don't have access to customers and users. They don't have access to talent to hire. They don't have access to experienced entrepreneurs that can guide them on their founder journey, which all leads to higher levels of stress for these founders and unfortunately increased likelihood that they will not realize their potential, or said differently, that they'll fail. And we don't want that, right? So by understanding and hearing their origin stories, I think that you'll hear a little bit of, or see a little bit of yourself in them, right? A little bit of yourself in them, and it'll start the process of you developing a relationship with them. Hopefully, the spirit will come upon you, and you'll feel a little bit inspired to support them in their journey. We'll go into that at the end of the episode. But enough from me. Let's kick it over to the founders and hear a little bit of their intros right quick. We'll do a round of intros, then we'll come back and then hear from them individually with their origin stories. So first, I'm going to kick it over to Margo to hear just quickly her name of the company, 1-2 sentence description, and also where she's based out of. Margo?
Yeah, so Margo Jordan, founder of Enrichly. Enrichly is a self-esteem-based e-learning platform and gaming app for K through 12, and we're using gamification and data to really make self-esteem improvement fun for K through 12. And I'm based in Houston, Texas.
Awesome. I'm going to go down to Jeff. Oh, and you're on mute.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Osuji, the CEO of Eventnoire, the platform where Black culture and events intersect. We are based out of Chicago, Illinois.
Awesome. Ashton?
Hey everybody, my name is Ashton Keys, the founder of Athlytic. We're a platform that allows student athletes to connect, learn, and manage their endorsement opportunities. And we're from Detroit, Michigan.
Awesome. Emily?
I'm Emily Brown, co-founder of Free From Market. We're a digital health company in the food as medicine space, bringing together personalized food selection, telehealth nutrition for positive behavior change, and the ability to measure health outcomes in one platform. And I'm based in Kansas City.
Awesome. So let's get to these origin stories. I'm super excited and really intrigued to hear how these awesome entrepreneurs got to where they are today. Margo, I'll kick it over to you. I mean, what's your story? How'd you get here?
Yeah, so I grew up as a little girl in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as a girl, I would say I had low self-esteem. And that low self-esteem was really as a result of my parents getting married and divorced a couple of times. And my mom turning to drugs and alcohol to cope with that divorce, amongst other things. But as a result of that, I was making really bad decisions as a kid. In high school, I was hanging with the wrong crowd. I was really getting sucked into peer pressure. And I was making these decisions that was just leading me down the wrong road. And then one day I decided that I really didn't want these decisions that I was making to define who I was and any opportunities that I would miss. So I decided to join the military. And it was honestly the military that taught me things like self-discipline and morals and values. And it really allowed my self-esteem to flourish. And it was there where I realized what my potential was. And I was able to really start to reach that potential. So from there, I went to Texas Southern University and I graduated with my degree in finance at the top of my class. I went on to corporate America. I went into investment banking, and I kind of quickly realized that career kind of was not for me, but I learned a lot along the way as I was sort of in the military and sort of juggling my corporate job while also being a new mom at the same time. And I was still struggling, honestly, with this thing of low self-esteem. But I kind of felt like you sort of teach best what you need the most, and I live by that quote. And I discovered I really wanted to start a solution to a problem that I had as a girl. And I knew that there were tons of kids who had the same problem because, according to those statistics that I read, 75% of kids ages 7 through 11 had low self-esteem. And I knew that there were tons of like organizations and nonprofits that were targeted towards like boosting low self-esteem and trying to give kids confidence and really like mentoring these kids. But obviously kids needed more. So, that led me to starting really my first company, my first startup, which was called Chicks with Class back in the day. And it was really a girls empowerment center. And it was a self-esteem center where we really taught girls all about like positive body image and confidence. And it was something that I built from the ground up. And I took everything that I learned from the military and I put it into this center. And we did really good. We ended up impacting like over 15,000 kids, and we got a lot of tween celebrities involved, and we did some amazing things. I got some funding, and I really learned what it meant to be an entrepreneur. And then all of a sudden, in 2020, we were hit with this pandemic, and everything was sort of turned upside down. And I said to myself, I want to say 6 months before the pandemic happened, I always knew I wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. I just didn't know how to get there. But I knew, because I sort of saw this ability for me to kind of reach my potential. I didn't have a tech background, but I knew I could figure it out. And the pandemic was sort of like, it was like I guess a blessing in disguise, because it allowed me to take everything that I put into that center, into that brick and mortar, into this online platform that you see, which is Enrichly. And I was able to create this beautiful thing that is able to impact not only the children that are in Houston, but really impact kids around the world. And that's what we're doing right now today. And I was able to put together this really amazing team of psychologists and therapists and counselors, really to develop self-esteem in children and solve this problem that, I still, as an adult today, make sure that I work on. And I always say self-esteem is a muscle, and it's something that we have to work on every single day, especially being a founder of color and a woman. Like, we get told no 1,000 times a day, and it's damaging to your self-esteem. But honestly, with what I do and what I teach, I can't be true to myself and teach this to children if I'm not upholding those things. So, I guess it all comes full circle. And I am excited to be a part of the Black Founders Fund 3. And that is my origin story.
Awesome. Wow, it's such an amazing talent. To have that self-awareness, and then also obviously the drive and the passion to make it happen. A few things. One, previous guest on the show, Ruben Gaona from The Way Out, actually is one based out of Milwaukee, and then two is a military veteran as well. Has been in the military, so happy to make a connection there. How can people get in contact with you?
So people can contact me via email, Margo B, like Bravo, at youthenrichments.com. And that's enrichments plural.com.
Awesome sauce. Cool. Well, good stuff. Now we're going to kick it over to Jeff, who is not far from Milwaukee, relatively speaking. What's your story, good sir? How'd you get here?
Yeah, so the story of Eventnoire really started back when I was in college down at the University of Illinois. So born and raised in Chicago, son of two Nigerian immigrants that always taught me to work hard. And for me, I worked hard in high school to get to college. And I was super excited because the first time I was on my own, I didn't have to listen to anybody, and I could figure out my path for life. And I think I figured it out because down at U of I, same place that Bob Johnson, who started BET, went to college. I think I saw the same opportunity as him. There was a number of African-American kids from the South Side of Chicago, West Side of Chicago, St. Louis, East St. Louis. And all of a sudden we were in the middle of cornfields, and we were, maybe 5% of the population, if not less. And there was a need for us to really connect. We'd see each other in passing, right? But in most spaces and most classes, there just weren't a lot of Black folks. And so what I realized was that the on-campus bars didn't really have a need to have cultural relevant events that really focused on hip hop, and allowed us to have our own events because they were making a lot of money. All right. And the off-campus bars, I saw an opportunity that they actually needed business. Not only did they need business, they were more flexible in terms of playing hip hop and working with entrepreneurs like myself. And so we decided to host our first event down to U of I, and it was huge. Over 800 people attended. The line was across down the block. And so that was when I really realized that there was a strong need to build both spaces and places, no matter where you are, for Black people to come together, celebrate each other's culture, be in places where we don't have to code switch, where we can let our guard down and have a good time. Because when we have these places, it allows us to build culture, build community, and celebrate our values. And so I was actually pre-med down at U of I. If you're Nigerian, your parents are probably going to tell you need to study medicine, be a doctor, or be an engineer. And so that was my path. When I launched my event company in college, I was able to essentially leverage marketing, relationships, understand the importance of community service to launch a successful event business. And so I would go from the chemistry lab straight to one of my events, which would be sold out. And when I went down to Chicago for the summer, everybody was back home. There was the same question everybody had. It's like, what are we doing? Where are we going to go? Right. That's the number one question on the weekend. And because culturally relevant events are largely inaccessible for people of color, there just wasn't that much of a supply of it. And so my partner Femi and I, who I met in college, is actually my fraternity brother. We would just brainstorm different ideas for events. And we eventually spread. When he went to law school in DC, he would do events on the East Coast. I expanded in Chicago, and we would host events throughout the country. And we had to sit back and we're like, look, we have a successful event company. We're doing well. People are supporting our events. People are getting married from our events. People are getting jobs. But we have to do more than throw parties, because what would happen is when we host these events in Chicago and other markets, oftentimes it would be tough for us to get these venues. We would reserve a venue, and then once they found out that we were Black, either the bar minimum would raise, or we actually one time we had an event canceled. And so we realized that oftentimes while Black culture is loved by all, Black people aren't necessarily loved by all. And we didn't own any of the venues that we were hosting events at, and they were making tons of money. We didn't own any liquor companies. We said, look, we had to do more than just host events. We had to be able to connect people to these spaces and places globally. And we said it's time for us to launch our own platform that's going to do that. Because at the end of the day, if we could, we'd host events all over the world. But if we can help empower creators and connect people who are looking for places where they can kind of be themselves, it's really helping to improve their quality of life, improve their mental health. And we said, let's launch a platform to do that. And we were using a popular event platform. And we realized that we made them a lot of money. One year we made them over $100,000. And we never got a thank you, never got a pat on the back. And with Black people spending over $31 billion on events annually, it was important for us to figure out how we can recycle some of those dollars back to the community. And so we created Eventnoire. I actually ended up launching the company with Femi back in 2017. We came up with the name. 2018, we worked on it part-time where we were working our jobs. And in 2019, we actually started getting traction. And then the pandemic happened. I quit my job to focus on Eventnoire, and revenue went down 99%. And that was when I spent time trying to pitch to investors. And after receiving no after no after no, I decided to just go back to the folks who had supported my events from the beginning. And I was able to raise a successful round to really expand the business, launch an MVP. And, the thing that really broke us and really allowed us to get national attention was us winning a startup competition through Mountain Dew. This is in 2021. It was the Real Opportunity Fund competition, which allowed us to get exposure on BET and give us national attention. And so after that, after COVID kind of events returned in March, we saw sales go through the roof. We were able to get into Techstars, which connected us to a number of mentors that allowed us to really understand how to grow the trajectory of our business. And so we spread over 21 markets. We even had folks host events in Lagos and Accra. And for us, it's just been about connecting folks, being able to build community, and really be able, again, to improve the quality of life for people all over the world who are looking to connect with Black culture-centric events. And so our goal is to be the gateway for Black events throughout the world. And as we continue to expand, we've been able to build an advisory board of successful folks. Kanye West's former manager, John Monopoly, has been essential in just helping us get partnerships with influencers as well as brands. And so it's been an amazing ride. And the beautiful thing about it is, everywhere we go, whether it's Denver, whether it's New York, folks are able to find amazing events. And so they're traveling to a new city. They're able to connect with like-minded folks. And that's important. And the things that people are being able to do from the events at our platform is amazing.
Dope. I mean, so Jeff and I share a number of things in common. I think another episode we got to go into that the story about how you met John Monopoly. But again, that's another episode and stuff like that. Okay, so if people want to use the platform either as an event attendee or they want to host events, something like that, how do they get in contact with you at the company?
So you can self-sign on today at eventnoire.com and create your event with no issue. But you can get in touch with me at jeff@eventnoire.com. Follow us on Instagram at Eventnoire HQ and Twitter on Eventnoire.
Awesome. So now let's keep it in the kind of the sports and entertainment space. I'm going to kick it over to Ashton. Ashton, what's your origin story, good sir?
Yeah. So for me, I think since we're a sports-based company, I always kind of start off with, my starting off at the youngest age, play sports my entire life, basketball, football, baseball, anything that I could get my hands on, honestly, from the time I was old enough to walk, all the way into my adulthood life. And I think that's always a big origin story for me because fun fact about like me in college, I most definitely chose college based on sports, and when I got to the age where, I was deciding which colleges, had to make a decision based on, would I want to go to, a smaller university and continue to play, or, what I wanted to do in terms of like what my career would be, and knew I wanted to work in sports to be around the game. So decided growing up in Detroit, at the time, which is crazy if you think about it, Michigan State had that Michigan State, Michigan always battles in terms of like which school has the best sports team. But when I was deciding for college, Michigan State was they were doing real good. Michigan wasn't doing good. Now we're probably neck and neck right now. But at that time, I was like, well, I'm going to Michigan State. And at the time, I didn't know how, but I always knew like I wanted to somehow get involved and work within the athletic department. So when I went there, I actually studied a master's degree. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I came in where I thought I was going to, do business or engineering, and was trying to decipher between that. And I actually joined our entrepreneurship association. So me, young Black kid from the inner city of Detroit, I was around all these tech founders, right? And I came in with a clothing line, and I wanted to kind of grow that. And that was my way into entrepreneurship because that's all I had seen. I'd seen barbershops, I've seen cleaners, I've seen, barbecue joints. That was entrepreneurship to me. But when I got to college and I joined this entrepreneurship association, I started to see tech entrepreneurs. And I remember, never forget this day in my life, the one guy, he had won a pitch competition. And I'm pretty sure everyone in this call probably be like, it's not a lot to us now, but back then I was just like enamored. He was like, I just won $30,000 to support my company, So for me, a young 18-year-old, I'm like, someone just gave you $30,000, no strings attached, just to try out this app idea. Like, sign me up. So at that point, I switched my major. I was like, I'm studying whatever I need to learn to get into this industry is what I did. So I actually studied a master's degree between computer science and UX design. So knew I needed to learn how to build the tech, but also knew I needed to learn how to create something that was very usable. And actually got a job while I was there at Michigan State through our innovation hub for learning and design. When I was at that job, we would do projects across the university on how to innovate learning through digital experiences. And the athletic department came to us and was like, we're trying to create this new course on how to teach our athletes to be public figures. So no, it was no way they could stop me from getting on that project. I'm like, put me on immediately. And I did that project for 2 years while I was at the university. And what we would do is interview the athletes and really educate them on, how to be a public figure. Uh, Learned a lot in terms of what athletes, they really didn't at that time view themselves as public figures. They kind of just viewed themselves as normal students. And I started to see the gaps in terms of what were the resources that were needed by these high level athletes that are at these schools that are bringing in a ton of revenue, especially underrepresented athletes, where, one mistake, could actually be detriment to their college career, but it's honestly detriment to their entire career, because we know like these things follow them by the time they're trying to go get drafted, or even throughout their, because of their heightened notoriety, it can affect them in their normal career, because these things are articles and people care so much about what their student athletes are doing. So when I had the time to graduate, I actually continued to work in tech. Started off as an engineer in augmented reality for a venture firm in Detroit called Investor Detroit Ventures, and realized while I was there that entrepreneur itch that I always had was something that I wanted to keep pursuing. So another pivotal moment in my career was a person that was a part of this other fellowship had just reached out to me and was like very, very on me about joining it. The fellowship was called Venture for America. And essentially, the concept that program is that you work for a company for 2 years in a sense of an apprenticeship, a high growth startup, or a high growth or very innovative company. And after that, you would be equipped to start a company. So I actually joined that as a product manager. Worked at Rocket Mortgage, Rocket Companies, which is because it's public now, but it was Rocket Mortgage and a whole bunch of different conglomerate of companies, and really, had a unique opportunity to be a product manager at a new company that was launching up within the ecosystem, and worked really closely to leadership. So VP of product, I had a good time to meet with the CEO at that time as well. So was spending really close time and learning what it takes to build. This company is a $1 billion company, and what it takes to really manage and grow a multi-billion dollar tech product and innovating the mortgage industry as a whole. So about a year into it, and knowing that after 2 years, I had to figure out what I wanted to do. This thing called name, image, and likeness was coming up. I was always a sports fanatic, always close to it. I was keeping close to my institution as well. So seeing what they were talking about. And it just hit a light bulb, because I realized what was going on when I was at the institution, and all the resources that the athletes needed while I was supporting them. And it was like, if they needed resources just to be public figures, just to manage their digital presence, how are we going to expect them to be fully fledged marketers and managing their business? So really dive deep into it. So was looking at all different types of, me a product manager, how I approach problems in general is you kind of look at the market, look at the adjacent competitors, and seeing that it wasn't anything, especially at that time, that would be helpful for them to support. But also the influencer marketing industry as a whole and what were available to micro, macro influencers really sucked. Quite frankly, they were still using Excel sheets and sending that to brands and saying select their influencer. But we all know tech, and especially our social status, is a fluid thing. I have different followers today than I have tomorrow. Who engage on my comments and my posts today is different than tomorrow. And especially in sports where it's a week to week thing, we're going to see this season, you're going to see an athlete go from no name to Heisman winner. And that happens often just because it's so much happening in sports. So wanted to create a product that actually mirrors what happens in the industry, and really put our Black and brown athletes in a position to, they got 4 or 5 years to monetize and take advantage of the best of their ability to be successful in their career. That's what we're doing. We also have been pitched in so many different competitions, and another competition that kicked us off, similar to Jeff, was the Mountain Dew Real Change Fund. So that was our first capital that went into our company and really allowed us to build our MVP of the product. And after that, we also been supported by other organizations like Cadillac, like Rocket Mortgage, like Wilson Sports, who also gave us the opportunity from a financial side to continue to build and get to where we are. And after that, we went to Techstars, And after Techstars, we raised our first institutional capital with organizations like Concrete Rose, Visible Hands, just to say some of them. And been on the ground running since, and been supporting a ton of athletes and really changed lives, even at this point where allowing our athletes to do things that you wouldn't even think about, but helping buy their family Christmas gifts, paying bills back home for their parents, and just learning a new skill. So really learn how to market themselves, financial literacy, and manage the capital that they've done as well. So love the partners. MasterCard is another partner that's helping us on the financial literacy side, and very excited about continuing to support our athletes in the future and creating that next generation of financial literate, business literate, brand literate, young African-American, underrepresented athletes who are going to change the world as we see it.
Dope. I got an intersection in my story, even on the event side with it from Detroit. So I got in Michigan and got love there. So, but it's interesting, really cool. You go from watching that first guy win that 30,000 the pitch competition, and now you winning them yourself.
Yeah.
Great full circle moments. How can people get in contact with you if they want to do business or support or anything like that?
Yeah, so they can LinkedIn, just Ashton Keys. Our website is www.athlytic.io. Instagram, athlytic.io. So we're pretty available on all our channels and platforms. You can sign up for the platform right now through our website. But if you want to reach out to me personally, just message me on LinkedIn. I'm always on there. So just hit me up.
There it is. So last but certainly not least, we have Emily. Emily, you know the drill at this point. Let's hear that origin story.
Yes, thank you, Joey, for the opportunity to share the origin story of Free From Market. Like so many of my colleagues here today have shared their story, Free From Market really begins with that lived experience, my personal experience. So I have two daughters that both have chronic conditions where food is really part of the standard of care, where there haven't been pharmaceutical therapies for treatment, and really the food that you eat, when you eat it, is really how you manage the conditions. And like so many Americans during tough economic times, my husband and I found ourselves just going through a struggle. So we were on WIC and we were on SNAP. And I always tell people I'm extremely grateful for the support of those federal nutrition programs. They really do matter and they are meaningful. And we're very grateful for the support that we had. But unfortunately, we were not able to get the foods that we needed. It was a real challenge. And then I went to a local food pantry. Very humbling experience, stood in line for hours, only to find 2 potatoes and a jar of salsa were the only safe foods available for my family. And so that was really a defining moment for me. I knew that we couldn't be the only ones struggling with this issue and that there had to be a way. So initially, I started a nonprofit. That was my kind of first step into entrepreneurship. And so I started that nonprofit to get special dietary foods into food banks and to food pantries. And that nonprofit is still growing, still doing well. But as I was building that organization, I had an opportunity to really see all sides of the coin. So I knew what it was like to be in the breadline and the challenges there, trying to find the right foods that you need in order to stay healthy and not being able to find them, to then running an organization that helped stock and promote and get those foods into those systems where they had not been before. But I also had an opportunity to build strong relationships with hospitals and with payers. And I also began to study the issue. I became a co-investigator in the food as medicine space, looking at special dietary foods and food insecurity. So I'm a co-investigator on several studies with several top health research institutions. And so as I began to study it, I began to see an opportunity in the market. I saw this shift happening in healthcare, where there had been so much focus on volume, so the number of patients and really getting paid on the number of patients, to really this shift to moving to what's called value-based care. So, making sure that, patients are receiving quality care every time, and that, we're reducing the number of readmissions and those types of things. And part of that was due to the rise of social determinants of health, which is really defined by the environment that influences health. And we now know that 80% of health outcomes are determined through things like access to food, your access to quality education, affordable housing. All of these things actually mean more than the interaction that you have inside the clinic. So being able to make investments in resources that support patients outside the clinic to really support those environments is key. So as I was studying and I was, doing the work to help people get access to the right food through what I would call the emergency food system or the charitable food system, there was really kind of this aha moment of, can we leverage this shift in healthcare to really do the work at scale? Food pantries and food banks are always going to be there. They're always going to have a critical role in supporting individuals who lack consistent access to food. But 1 in 3 Americans has a chronic condition where food is part of the standard of care. And that lack of access to food is really detrimental and is driving up our healthcare costs and causing poor health outcomes. And so for me, it was like, how can we take what we've been doing at this small level and create more access and do it on a larger scale? And so that's really where Free From Market began. And I knew instinctively in my work at the food pantry that we needed to look at other modes of distribution and ways to really scale the effort. And so, like so many others on the call today, really looking at kind of the challenges of COVID-19 and seeing the opportunities to really leverage technology during those shutdown orders and working through some of those challenges really created new opportunities. And so Free From Market really launched in 2021, but really grew out of my experience and work at the nonprofit over COVID, building a platform and looking at how can we leverage technology to get people the right food at the right time. But even beyond that, access to education where they may not have had it previously, and then being able to have that data to understand on the back end whether a utilization happened and what types of foods were received. Because here I was, working through the food system, the charitable food system, and working with hospitals, and really noticed there was just this gap on the data, not being able to see, if a patient received the food that they needed. And so that's what we've done. We've built an MVP. We're working with a couple of hospital systems, and I've been able to pull together a strong team that has deep experience in everything from healthcare to food systems and logistics and operations to finance, but really focused on that lived experience, rooting that in all that we do, and then leveraging the technology and the data to really scale the effort and grow. So today, what that looks like is, our partners are able to refer patients or members to our platform. They're able to go on and select the foods that they need and want, have them delivered direct to door, but in that really safe environment. So they're able to, select from name brand products, the things that they need. And we pay attention to cultural foods. So making sure that, we have a vast array of foods is critical to our work. And then again, that data is then used to help further improve interventions for their health outcomes. So that's kind of where we started, what we're doing. And, we're really excited to be a part of the Google Black Founders Fund and a part of Goodie Nation, because we do know that those relationships and that support really do open up doors.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And powerful story. And thank you for the work you're doing tackling this very important problem. Okay, so how can people get in contact with you if they want to do business or use it or anything like that?
Yeah, so you can learn more about Free From Market at freefrommarket.com. You can find me on all social platforms at Emily Brown Speaks, and you can follow Free From Market at Shop Free From Market on all of the social platforms.
Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. Okay, cool. So listen, y'all, I said you're in for a treat. You got a treat, right? You're for some amazing stories. I mean, quote of the day, probably teach what you need the most. You teach best what you need the most. Hopefully I messed that up, Margo. I tell you, I'm gonna keep on using that. Yeah, awesome stories. So here's the opportunity for you as you're watching this, right? Support is a verb. And so Dr. Key Hallman from Village Market says this all the time, that support is a verb. And so here's how you can support them. Comes in one of a few different ways. One, you can become a customer or a user. Two, you can provide capital to them, so think investor. Or three, you can amplify their message. Maybe you're a storyteller yourself, or simply you can just hit share on social media, right? They've all given you their contact information. But if you want a little bit more information on them, just go to the link at the bottom of the screen. You'll see a card for them. You can click on it. You can read a little bit more. You can get introduced to them via a warm intro link. You can also see the other recipients of the Google for Startups Black Founders Fund 3, as well as the other recipients of Google for Startups Black Founders Fund 1 and 2, right? But just say for a second that you can't do any of the previous three ways of support. And I believe you can, but maybe you can't, right? I believe that somebody in your network can do this. Somebody in your network can do this. So my ask to you is, if you could spend an hour thinking about ways that either you could support or someone else in your network can, again, become a customer or a user, provide capital to them, or tell their story, we can start to close the relationship gap. That's what we call it, Goodie Nation being intentionally good. Now, if you can do this for 6 months straight, again, 1 hour a month, for 6 months straight, it goes to creating from an action to a habit, from a habit to behavior, especially as you bring in your network. And then we form, once we go from group behavior, turns into a culture of supporting diverse founders and social entrepreneurs, right? That's how we close the relationship gap. So please support them. They gave you their contact information, but also you can go to the link at the bottom of your screen. This has been an awesome episode of Prequel, Origin Stories and Inflection Points by Goodie Nation, featuring the recent recipients of the Google for Startups Black Founders Fund 3. Once again, I am Joey Womack, founder, CEO. Thanks for tuning in. Please share this episode. Please post on social media about these awesome founders. Outwork yesterday and stay magnetic.